Hello, today we're going to be talking about the character cards for Aristea. Every character has got a card that comes with the game or comes in their expansion and covers their statistics. These are the things you'll need to know in a game of what they can do, how far they can move, all sorts of good things. So for this, we're going to be looking at Major Luna's card. Every character card will obviously have their name as well as a picture of the character. At the top of the card, you're going to see four lines underneath that. The first thing you're going to have is their basic statistics. So all characters will have an initiative stat, a movement stat, and an energy stat. Now this is important because, well, these are the first things you're probably going to want to think about when you're assembling your team. The initiative stat is how fast they go in terms of determining initiative. The higher the initiative stat, obviously the better. If two characters have the same initiative stat, then you'll refer to the underdog rules, which you'll find in the reference guide, and we'll talk about that later on. On average, a character will have, I'd say a 4 or 5 would be about average. If they are, for some poor reason, a 3 or lower, they're going to be very slow. You should expect them to get beaten in the initiative quite often. Conversely, someone with 6 or higher has got a very high initiative stat. And as of today at least, Reckless Hearts, the Aristea expansion that's not just out yet, has a character that actually has a way to buff initiative stats. So this is something that'll be very interesting forward. That's getting ahead of us. Right next to that is your movement stats. Now, when you do things in Aristea, you pay an energy cost, and moving is one of those things you can do. It's a universal ability. You spend 2 energy, and when that happens, you get that many movement points. Now, this is kind of a movement pool, is what they usually refer to it as in the game. So you can move 2, attack, move 2, or move 3, do something, stay there, whatever. But that's basically how far you can move for every 2 energy spent. That's a very important part of the game. Movement is very big for many scenarios. Even in the most basic scenario, which would be assault, it's hard to score and get into the scoring zone if you can't get there. So obviously, you'd want to have movement being a factor in decisions. Right after that, it will be your energy. Now, this is how many points of energy you get for that character's turn. There are things that can reduce that, such as coming in out of the infirmary off of the bench. But generally speaking, this is when you're perfectly good, perfectly healthy, you'll get this many points. So Major Luna has an initiative of 5, so that's not too bad. She'll win sometimes. She's probably going to tie a lot. Then you're going to have 4 movements, so she moves decently, not great. And then she has 5 energy, which is sort of the baseline. Anyone who has less than that, it's kind of a special case, and you want to be mindful of it. To the top right hand corner, you actually have a health. That's how many. That's how much damage you can take before your character is sent to the infirmary. Major Luna has 3 health. This I would consider to be below average. She's a little squishy, but it works out since she is a sniper. So obviously a character with 4 I would consider average. If it's 5 and above, they've got above normal health. That's probably a good thing, because chances are they're the type of character that wants to be in the front line. So right below that, you'll have their defensive stats. Now, as we talked about in the Aristea 99 dice, from here on down, it's going to be all in dice. Everything's in dice. So it's important to know what the dice mean. I would go ahead and look at previous video if you haven't done so already. It'll help put a lot of context. So we're going to look at Major Luna. She's got a green die and a blue die. These are both defensive orientated dice. And it means basically that she's got a chance of removing a complete full die from her opponent's roll. But more than that, she's got a reliable defense because they're both defensive dice. Now, if you look right below that, there's going to be two things you'll see. There's going to be a fist, very angry looking fist, and there looks like someone who's about trying to run away like crazy. Now, this is your brawl and your disengage, and these two basically apply to the same situation depending on which side you're on. So Major Luna, for instance, happens to have a yellow for her brawl. That is not necessarily a great roll for that. The yellow die is more about the specials, the exclamation point. And for a brawl roll to be successful, it actually needs shields, needs defensive dice. The characters with defensive dice in that will be better at keeping a disengaging opponent where they are. She's not great at it. There's a chance she can stop someone, but it's not great. And then there's her disengage roll, which is an orange. For disengaging rolls, you want offensive dice. So that would be your red dice, your orange dice. A yellow could work, not ideal. So looking at this right now, she's not going to be good at keeping someone back, but she's not terrible at running away herself. Very good to know. Right below that, you'll see the two exclamation points. Nullify a shield, a block, from your opponent's roll. This is the switch. This is one of the defining abilities for a character. In her case, whenever she gets two exclamation points, she can reduce an opponent's defensive roll. This is very important. She's a sniper. Okay, so right below here, you're going to see another section, and that's got a couple different things in there. And the reason I chose Major Luna is she's got 3 types of abilities, and all of them are important, but not all of them are on all characters. First, you're going to see Called Shot. That is a red ability. That is an attack. Attacks, obviously, are generally meant to hurt somebody. Now, the reason that it's important that we point this out is the red abilities, the attack abilities, have the dice their rolls in order to see if they succeed. But remember that defensive die we were talking about earlier on, your defensive roll? Well, your opponents against a red attack ability can make a defensive roll. So you want to have more successes than they have blocks. And if you look in the reference guide or if you look through the rules, there's the whole face-to-face roll-off there. It's pretty easy to understand once you give it a read, but that's the first thing you want to look at. You'll see that it's got a 3 next to it. That means it costs 3 energy. This is usually pretty normal actually for an attack. You'll notice that it's got a red die, it's got an orange die, it's got a star. Star means that basically you have an automatic success. Then in a little hexagon right there, it says 3 to 8, but it's in a black hexagon. So that means it's ranged 3 to 8 hexes away, and because it's black, she needs to have line of sight. So if an opponent is 1 hex away or 2 hexes away, she cannot attack them using Called Shot. Right below that is Suppressive Fire. That's a green ability. That's a special ability. It costs 2, which isn't really out of the ordinary for that sort of thing. It has an orange roll, it has a yellow roll, and on a green ability, what you want is to roll at least 1 success. That's really all that matters. And by doing that, you'll notice she's got to impose the -2 state to the target, -2 movement. She needs to roll a success for that. So you'll also notice, though, there's a switch for that ability itself. This is actually one of the it's fairly common that an ability might have its own switch, so there's a secondary effect that could happen. So for her, you pay a shield, and if you pay a special, an exclamation point, it'll also do 1 damage. Normally, the green abilities do not do any damage. However, they also do not get defensive rolls going against them. So if you were to attack your opponent's character with called shot, they would get a defensive roll, but if you did suppressed fire, they would not get a defensive roll. And again, you'll also see that it's range 3 to 8, so you would not necessarily be able to do this against someone who's 1 to 2 hexes away. Below that, you see orange ability. These are passive abilities. These are basically always happening. And you need to remember these because they're very useful usually when you see them. So for her, she has marksmanship. Her targets cannot gain the benefits of cover. Cover will, if you meet the requirements, will give you 1 black die, which is a nice little defensive buff. On top of that, she has veteran sniper. Before making a combat roll, you can switch any black die to an orange die. So for instance, should she be working from cover herself, could actually turn that cover into a boost in her damage. So if she was to do called shot, you get to roll 1 red, 2 oranges, and have 1 automatic. That's pretty nice. So by looking at all of these, you can get a good idea of what the character is going to be good at, maybe not be so good at, and it will help you make a good decision when composing your team. I hope that helps. So next week we'll be talking about the standard tactics cards. These are the 10 cards that go into every game of Aristea and are a huge part of the game. Talk to you soon, and aloha from Maui.